Hey everyone. So, with all of this talk of the possible BlackRock spot ETF possibly being approved and a lot of other spot ETFs being approved, like ARK Invest, Cathie Wood's ARK Invest, there have been a lot of predictions of where Bitcoin is going to go. And I thought I'd throw my hat in the ring here and put together my price prediction for Bitcoin. And really, it's basically an argument for why Bitcoin can easily go to 100,000. So I'm going to put this model together or explain the model to you. It's very easy, and I call it the ease of entry model. And let's get into it, and then I can talk to you about what I think might happen in the next year or so. So right now, this row here describes the current Bitcoin market cap. And I took this about a few days ago, so it might change slightly. But the current Bitcoin market cap is 565 billion. If we look at the number of Bitcoins that are currently in circulation, and let me just type it up here, which is about 19,400,000, we come up with a price of 29,123 roughly, and it's probably been fluctuating a little bit, in the last few days or so. So this is where we're at, and I'm going to show you how exactly I think we'll get to 100,000. So let's say that we get this BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF approval. Let's say it gets approved, right? And what that's going to really mean is that there will be an ease of entry into this this investment. So when BlackRock gets that approval, which I do believe they will get it, I don't know exactly when, but I do believe it will happen. It's almost an inevitability. That means that there will be people who will move their assets and who will basically get the green light to move their assets from one asset to another, move their funds from one asset to another. So let's say, for example, since we are really kind of getting into the consensus that Bitcoin is really digital gold, then let's look at the gold market cap and let's see what that looks like. And let's say the total gold market cap is about 13 trillion. All right, so let's look at 13 trillion, and then let's see, hey, let's say there's an institution or an investor in BlackRock who now has seen that, hey, BlackRock got their Bitcoin spot ETF approved. And they might think, hey, you know what? I want to move some funds from my, let's say, a gold ETF over to the Bitcoin ETF, or move something from move funds from something that's been underperforming over to something like the Bitcoin spot ETF. And let's say it's not a huge number. Let's say overall, not just in BlackRock, but also in other like ARK Invest, let's say this starts happening. And if we look at the total gold market cap of 13 trillion, let's assume that we have a 5% move, a 5% shift. So a 5% shift of the total gold market cap shifting over to Bitcoin. All right. Well, if we assume this, then 5% of 13 trillion is 650 billion. So I highlighted it and boxed it so you keep track of this number. All right, 650 billion. Now, let's add that number to the current Bitcoin market cap. So 565 billion, add 650 billion, we now get to 1.2 trillion, right? And if we get to 1.2 trillion, as far as a Bitcoin market cap, and we look at the number of Bitcoin, which is still 19,400,000, then we're looking at a Bitcoin price of 62,628, roughly, right? Okay, so now let's put that aside. Now, let's assume that, this is the other assumption, let's assume that investors, retail investors, institutional investors, maybe wanting to move part of their funds in a S&P 500 index, part of their funds over from that to a Bitcoin spot ETF. And just so you know, Fidelity is one of the companies that also applied for a Bitcoin spot ETF. Now, think about that. Think about someone, an investor like you or me, who has an account possibly at Fidelity, and how easy it would be to go online and move their money from a Fidelity S&P 500 index or some company S&P 500 index, move some of those funds over to a Bitcoin spot ETF. And let's say it's not a huge number, all right? The total market cap of all the S&P 500 companies is about 37 trillion. That is a big number, all right? And if we could assume that some percentage of that total market cap will move over to a Bitcoin spot ETF and away from an S&P 500 index, then we're looking at another sizable shift. And it doesn't even have to be a huge amount. And I see a lot of people talk about 5%, 10%, 10% shift. What if we just looked at 2%? And 37 trillion is a huge number. 2% of that is now 740 billion. Okay, so the hole, and I'll be honest with you, the hole in this scenario is that I mentioned Fidelity. Fidelity does not hold all of the funds in a S&P 500 index fund, right? Their S&P 500 index fund is probably in the hundreds of billions, and we're talking 37 trillion. So that would entail all the companies, having some type of S&P 500 index fund. All of those companies seeing a shift away from that index fund over to a Bitcoin spot ETF. Okay, so that would be a pretty sizable shift, and this is why I was very conservative and put a 2% number. So 2% number of that total S&P 500 market cap of 37 trillion is 740 billion. So we add in that previous dollar amount of 1.2 trillion plus 740 billion. We now get to 1.955 trillion, and that, folks, is our magic number. When we look at the number of Bitcoin out there, we're now looking at a Bitcoin spot price of 100,773. I don't think it's going to get to that number exactly, but I believe that it is very possible for us to get that number, to pass that number, because we'll be seeing a lot of people FOMOing in, and that will cause a possible spike in the price, probably up to 150K, but then it'll drop back down to somewhere, level out back to around 100K. So this is, like I said, an ease of entry model. It entails people just clicking, going into their account, going online, moving some funds aside, clicking a few buttons, and off they go. Now they're in the Bitcoin universe. When is this going to happen? Well, this absolutely assumes that BlackRock is going to get their Bitcoin spot ETF approved. But not only does BlackRock need to get theirs approved, ARK Invest needs to get theirs approved, Fidelity needs to get theirs approved. There needs to be a sizable shift. I do believe that the SEC will probably not just stop at BlackRock, because they can't be seen to be favoring one company over another. So if they approve one, they will most likely approve two or possibly three. So that's the next thing, that's the first thing that needs to happen. And most likely it will happen. We'll probably be looking at that happening, before the Bitcoin halving. And then we have the Bitcoin halving, which is going to happen in second quarter of 2024. Second quarter of 2024, we'll probably see the Bitcoin halving around April 2024, and then that will also cause a surge of interest, a surge of liquidity into the Bitcoin world, and all of these events will probably contribute to a price increase of 100,000. So I'm looking at, because it has to happen, because I'm saying the Bitcoin halving has to happen first, I'm looking at a Q3, Q4 of 2024, possibly Q1 of 2025, as far as the $100,000 price. If I were to be conservative, then I would probably be looking at Q1 2025, possibly even Q2 2025. So we don't have a whole lot of time for this to happen. It's gonna happen relatively quickly, I believe, even though we've been kind of flatlining at 29,000, 30,000 for a while. Once this happens, it's going to create a cascade of events. So there you have it, folks. Wanted to just introduce this ease of entry model. I would love to hear what you have to say, and please go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks a lot.